Hello, this is Emily. Welcome back to my channel. And now that we are halfway through the year, it is time for the mid-year freakout tag. Now this tag is a list of 13 questions that I have to answer regarding books I've read throughout the year so far. So let's hop right on in and answer these questions. Question 1 asks, the best book you've read so far in 2022. Now, I have currently read a lot of books so far, so it was kind of hard thinking through which book I would include on this. However, there was one my mind kept going back to and has gone back to all throughout the year, even though I read it back at the beginning of the year, and that is The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrafer. And this is a young adult sci-fi following Ambrose and Kodiak, the sole two humans on a spaceship who are traveling through space with the mission thinking that they are going to save Ambrose's sister. However, that's not the case, and there's something more sinister going on, and it's pretty much a race between these two against the machines controlling the spaceship. But it was really like breathtaking read. Like, I was intrigued from start to end. It had me thinking when I wasn't even reading the book, and I would definitely recommend this book. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil the plot itself, because if I spoil it, it's going to reveal the whole story, because you kind of start out confused on what's going on as you go on and read. But definitely a great read, and it made me feel so many emotions while reading it. Question number 2 is the best sequel you read so far. And I haven't really had any like sequels that really stood out. However, there was one, it's not actually the sequel, it's the conclusion of the series, and that is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. I felt that this story like finally wrapped up all the loose ends nicely, and I had a very satisfactory end to everything that's been going on and all the conflict points. So that's why this book fulfilled that prompt. And I, again, don't want to say too much because it's a sequel and don't want to ruin the whole book, especially if you haven't read Scythe yet. But I would definitely recommend reading the series in its entirety, because it is a really great read and also a very thought-provoking YA sci-fi. Question 3 is a new release you haven't read but want to, and that is The House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is pretty much of a chunker, so I think that's part of the reason why I've kind of been putting off reading it. Also, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews, so I don't really want it to kind of ruin the whole story for me. And now the first book was a 4-star read for me, and Sarah J. Maas, I do love her stories, but sometimes the plot can be a little cheesy, but I guess it's more like guilty pleasure reading versus, you know, actual like conflict reading. So that's why I do enjoy reading her works. But I am looking forward to reading this, and hopefully I will read it before the end of the year. Question 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and it was hard to choose just one. I ended up picking 4. First, I'll have Lore Olympus Volume 2. I'll show the picture somewhere here. This one I have pre-ordered, and I love the art style of this series, and it's basically a Hades and Persephone, I can never say her name properly, retelling that's kind of modernized to today's era. But it's really great art and a really lovely webcomic. The next is the 7th volume of Blue Period, and I'll go more in depth on why I'm looking forward to that in some of my later questions. Then I am looking forward to Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I read her book, The Love Hypothesis, last year, and it blew me away. So I'm really looking forward to her second fully published work, and can't wait to get my hands on it in the latter half of this year. And then the final book is a book I've actually read before. However, it's getting a updated cover, and that is Wolf Song by TJ Klune, and the new cover art is absolutely gorgeous. So I am definitely going to be buying that and getting rid of my Dream Spinner press edition of this book. But that's another one I'm looking forward to buying. Yeah, next question is biggest disappointment My first biggest disappointment was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I'll post a pic here because I've already unhauled that book. It was that disappointing. And basically, I just didn't like the book and felt it did not live up to her debut work, Red, White, and Royal Blue. And so I was just really saddened by reading that because I was just so let down by the plot and everything. And the next book, it's going for my biggest disappointment on a series, and that is The Nemesis by S.J. Kincaid. I absolutely adored the first 2 books in the series, and this one I just felt it kind of rushed the conclusion, and just some characters were kind of acting out of character, so it just did not wrap up the series like I wished it would have. So unfortunately, this was a disappointment for me. Biggest surprise, I have 2 books. I couldn't narrow it down. First is The Little Prince, and for it being such a little short read, this was a very big surprise for me, and I absolutely found myself enjoying this story and read it in one sitting. And the other one is Blue Period, volume 1 through 6. I just brought the first one in because I wasn't toting them all into this room. And basically, I wasn't really expecting much, but then I ended up adoring this series and literally reading all 6 volumes in 1 month, which is kind of why I'm looking forward to the 7th one being released so I can continue on. Just because the story itself is amazing. It's following Yatoro, who decides he wants to pursue the arts, and so we're kind of following him on his journey to getting into a art university. So next question is favorite new author, and for me that would probably be James Baldwin. I just finished Giovanni's Room and absolutely loved his writing style, so I want to check out more of his works. Next we have newest fictional crush. I'm not one to really crush on characters I read about, so I don't really have one that comes to mind on that one. The next one is newest favorite character, and for that I'd have to say Yatora from Blue Period. I really love his drive to get into art school, and I find myself rooting for him, and that's probably why I've read all 6 volumes in one setting, because I just love that character so much. The next question is a book that made you cry, and for me, I don't often cry when reading because I tend to avoid books that I know will possibly make me cry. However, one book did make me cry so far this year, and that is The Great Unexpected by Dan Mooney. And I'm not going to say why I cry because it's a spoiler at the end, but this was definitely a very heartwarming read. So the next question is a book that made me happy, and that is The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. Now, this is a book that does deal with grief and overcoming grief. However, I did find myself just kind of like happy inside reading it, just because it was just so heartwarming, and I really loved the character, especially Patrick, and how he took in his niece and nephew after their mom died and kind of raised them for the summer while their dad was in rehab to help recover from his addiction. And it's just the antics in this book between him and getting used to raising children was just so sweet, and I was smiling throughout the read. Even though some parts were sad, it was overall a happy read, and I would definitely recommend this book. Next question is the most beautiful book I either purchased or was gifted this year. There are a few options for that because I do buy a lot of books based on their covers. First, we have Way of the Argosy, which is one that I bought myself. And I just love the cover style of this whole series. And I love that they continue on with this prequel to the Spell Slinger series. The next one that I loved was the Alcrate Special Edition of Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely love the cover and sprayed edges, and even like the end pages and like inside covers were gorgeous, which is why I bought the special edition, because she is one of my favorite authors, and I will shell out a couple extra bucks for the special editions of her works. The final question is, what books do you need to read before the end of this year? And there are quite a few on my list. At the beginning of the year, I did make a 12 books to read before the end of 2022. And these are the ones I still have not read. So I definitely do need to read these. Also, I have some series I want to continue on with, so I need to try to finish up some series. So I have some like last books in series or continuations of series I need to pick up over starting new series. So that's another topic of books I need to read for the end of the year. Well, that's all the questions for the mid-year freakout tag. I am pretty proud with how many books I have tackled so far this year, and I hope the second half is as successful as this first half of the year has been with reading. But other than that, I guess that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below on some of your top reads of the year, or what was the most beautiful book you bought this year? Because I always love to add a pretty book to my library. But I guess I will see you guys in my next video, and thanks for watching.